Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of Teach Jenn Tech. And I will say, I think this is the first time I actually started it right when it said to go live instead of me going, oh shit, we forgot something. I need to finish this thought. So, welcome back, Leo. For
Thank you.
those who didn't join last week, we talked a lot of theory of data modeling and we stumbled our way. Ooh, I have flying pens. We stumbled our way into me finding out that I could really use a data model for my podcasting process and creating content for that. So we are going to use that as an example and we will yeah, that's that's where I got to. And Leo, please introduce yourself.
Yes. So I am a software engineer, currently with Copy AI for kind of the day job, and then building a number of products on the side. Um, I'm also kind of a all-around creator, working on a book, podcasts, plural, YouTube channels, a little bit of everything. Um, so if you want details on any of that, you can check it out at Twitter. That's probably that's where I'm most active and kind of it's my hub for everything. But yeah, happy to be back. It should be fun and practical.
Yes, and I think that's one of the best parts about this show is it is a lot about theory, but a lot of it is also about the practical use of it. And that's a big reason. I will link and also thank you for helping me figure out what I was actually trying to say about data modeling in my article instead of the very convoluted way I wrote it.
Yeah, no worries. It's one of those things. It's like it's kind of awkward to talk about, especially because as I kind of pointed out, like there's two definitions of data models, right? Like there's the
Mhm.
data models that are actually like talking about like what you're trying to model and kind of like modeling real world objects, and then there's like the more like formal definition of data models and kind of how they are set up and kind of the relationships between them. And so using the term can just be confusing kind of by nature. Gotta love words like that. So yeah, I hope the practical kind of exercise of going through it will like help everybody just kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. And good morning or afternoon, everyone. Homie, I know it's morning your time, I believe. So, um, in the chat, I'm trying to keep up with chat and also copy and paste everything where it goes. For those, the blog I was talking about that I got input on is right here, and then I will pop out the chat now that I know I can do that, and very exciting. Because then I'm not missing everybody's stuff.
There you
I still
go.
kind of do. I'm not gonna lie, I still kind of do.
That's all good. We have blushing. Hey, blushing, how's it going?
What up, blushing? And hi, Jay. Yay. Oh, that's fun. Jay, yay. Yay. Homie, I don't have some. Okay, we're not going down a rhyming thing today. It's not going to. Blushing, crushing. Hey, that one kind of works though. Blushing is crushing it. I don't know. It's
Blushing
okay.
is crushing it.
Y'all, I will totally admit that I have been running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So that and my ADHD self is on fire this morning. If you need me to slow down and stop being so all over the board, please keep me posted. I'm working on adjusting the screen. I could show everybody that I'm working on adjusting the screen. Do, 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 do. Okay. So I feel like this is might be the best way of doing it. I don't
That
know.
should work. We could try
Uh,
it, and if it doesn't work, then we can try something different.
yes. All right. So I do not have a great way of talking through, and everybody watching, please let me know if I need to zoom this in more. I do not have a great way of figuring out how to make content for the podcast that I completely froze. Like, I'm not doing anything. I have episodes backlogged that all I have to do is upload them, but I'm like so overwhelmed and stuck that I haven't, I'm like, no touchy touchy. And it just now it's so big of a monster that I'm like, I know I need to do it. I don't know where to start. And this is, I would say, kind of like a start on data modeling.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of outlining the workflow, and I think that that's really
yeah.
great. And when it comes to actually like where to start the modeling process, because again, you kind of run into the same issue, right? Like, and we could just start at the beginning. Um, but one of the things that I like to do, I like to start with two questions. So first of all, um, what is there a place that you tend to forget to do a step? Because I know with ADHD, that's something that this is how I pretty much function every time. As soon as I forget to do something, I can pretty much guarantee I'm going to forget to do it again because ADHD. And so I work on a way to automate that step as much as possible so I can't forget. So either it's an automation of the step itself or it's an automated alert that if I forget the step, it'll let me know and not let me continue. So that's kind of the one approach. And then the second place that I like to start um, is any place that is just like time consuming. Is there a bottleneck in the process somewhere? Um, because again, kind of from the ADHD perspective, right? It's like knowing that there's something time consuming. Um, it doesn't have to be hard, but it's just kind of painful in that sense, right? It just takes up so much time, and so it stops us from doing it. And so that's where I like to start in the process and just say like, hey, where are the biggest pain points? And when it comes to building products as well, this is a good way to design products. Instead of focusing on like what you think the world looks like, start with like the problem. Where is the problem? And then kind of move out from there. So I find this a helpful process. So if you've got a place that fits either of those, I think that would be a good place to start.
All right. And that being said, like, thank you for that explanation because I think that does make a lot of sense. I think for myself is I'm stuck on I'm like stuck at the end.
Okay.
Um, because I know I need to plan stuff from the beginning, but I'm
Right.
like, oh shit, like this, I need like an audiogram or graphics or where am I uploading? Am I doing something with Patreon? Am I and these are all thoughts that I'm like, oh, it's
Okay.
terrifying because I've realized if I don't do social media, no one's going to find out about the podcast. It's not,
Right.
it's definitely a niche. It is not Teach Jenn Tech, which is a lot easier to get traction.
Yeah, and that's so that's a good point. So we can start with social media then, because I think that's good. So the first thing I would do is I would break that down into what social media platforms you care about. That way, social
Okay.
media is kind of a broad term. So if we break that out into the various platforms that you use, that'll probably be a good bit easier.
And y'all, I like it, Jay. You just don't do any social. I don't blame you. Um, I definitely don't blame you. It's so this was the beginning of me trying to figure out social, uh, because I have 4 projects, and so we're just gonna skip the other ones because the only one that I'm mostly doing for social is Teach Gen Tech because people won't show up. And I'm like, I want people to show up. This is good content to learn. So for the podcast, which is called Shit You Don't Want to Talk About. So if you see the word shit, that is why it's not shit. It is actually really good. Um, but it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok.
Okay. So, that kind of tells me that we probably need like 4 different flows, right? And so, in kind of breaking this out, I like to get it down to, as simple as possible, right? Like just a very simple workflow. Because then we can come back and we can actually like make composite workflows that are built up of the workflows that you've kind of broken apart, right? So yeah, let's just start with Twitter. We don't even
Okay.
need to worry about the rest of it. So we'll just start with Twitter. So what kind of content do you have to push out to Twitter?
Eh, Okay. Uh Now I'm just like totally frozen. I would say some of the content is the same across platforms. Um, so like episode announcements and uh, episode um, live. There we go. That's what I'll call it. And then I have, past episodes, uh, pauses, like causes to contribute to or important hot topics. I'm gonna do hot topic just because hot
Now I
topic,
really
one
want a
word.
studded belt.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. That's why I was just thinking about it. So the young me that always wanted to look like a really cool emo punk goth kid, it never happened. But I finally got the purple hair. I
the
always
purple
wanted
hair
the
rocks, and it like
thank you.
matches the whole like Twitch stream, which I think is fantastic. Like it's very color coordinated.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I actually used to have like a ton of facial piercings and worked at Spencer's for a number of years. So yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Like I was right there into all of that. So but yeah, I think it is
Thank
two
you.
words to go back to the original question.
Um yes, and thank you Ben for commenting my hair. It is also something that I'm pretty sure and Ben, this is before I knew you, so I'm like I think it was Ben, but I'm not 100% sure that he was posting stuff in one of the discords and I was like trying to model my stuff, like kept like seeing other people's graphics. I'm not sure. It was 2.5 months ago. That was a long time ago. I don't remember. All right. What else do I need to post on Twitter? Uh, oh, something I'm supposed to be posting there too and not is Wednesday Twitter spaces. Twitter space.
How's it going, Ben? Yeah. So okay, so I see a couple different things popping out, right? And so this is why it's always helpful to like go through this process because now I see. So we've got kind of the um, announcements, right? And so there's something happening at a specific time, um, and so you want to be able to alert people that it's live. Um, and then there's kind of the like discussion category, right?
Mhm.
So that's like the hot topic, causes, what do we want to get into? So that's kind of an interactive thing. Um, and then like past episodes, I would say is kind of uh let's see. I guess we can call it like archive, right? And so that's kind of a just something we can kind of like reach back and pull things out from the past to kind of get people interested into what's going on, right? Um, and so, kind of looking at this here, so if we start breaking it down and kind of just start thinking about what we might want to do um, for the announcements, because I think that's probably the easiest, right? Um, and so we've kind of got the event name, right? We could probably say like event. I'm gonna say category. That may not be the best word, but kind of in terms of like, so you've got like the 4 different projects, right? So you probably
Yeah.
want to categorize it that way.
Oh,
Project maybe project might be better. Just some way
campaign.
to campaign. There we go. That's
Yeah.
a good one.
It's the marketing term for it.
Yes, that's an excellent one.
Yeah.
Um,
Archive. I know, I'm totally making us slow down because I'm trying to organize this to where I could, like, do it again.
No, no, it's cool.
Uh,
And I think that is a
Archiving.
really handy thing to do. And I do that pretty much with everything I do. Like the first time I do something, I try to go through it slower to make it more repeatable in the future, because then it's more likely that I'll do it again in the future. Again, ADHD, got to play tricks with ourselves, right? Like we've got to make it as
Yes.
easy as possible on our future selves.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so you were saying for announcements, it's like, oh, I could do this. So it's at least for this announcement, it would be campaign. I really so campaign to me is saying, yeah, what like project it is, like you said. But I do think that I need to start putting tags like on, hey, this is this topic.
So I'd probably
Um,
separate that out into something else. So that was actually the next thing on my list that I was just thinking about. Because the tags could actually be shared between campaigns, right?
yeah,
Because there is a lot of overlap in the different things. So
I'm
I
gonna look
think
this up.
tags are important.
So, but campaigns, so would I put campaign on like each of them, or that's like a hierarchy, like up here kind of thing? Like all of them need
Yeah,
campaigns.
yeah, I would say that that's probably shared between all of them.
Okay.
And so,
Tags are also shared.
right,
Yeah,
Eh,
because like trying to figure out hashtags is interesting, just to say the least.
yeah,
Just in
I
case anybody
typically
was
don't.
curious.
Because of that. It's like, I don't know what to use. So I'm just not going to use any. Or I'll create my own and then nobody will use it except for me. And that's fine too. Uh,
JavaScript and JS get retweeted by
I
bots.
know.
And it's amazing because it does get more visibility.
I know.
Although I do feel really bad if I use like 100 devs because I'm like, I'm not doing that program. I shouldn't use that hashtag, but it gets retweeted.
But it's also helpful for
Uh,
people in the 100 devs community, right? And that's kind of the thing,
yeah,
right? So if it's something that they're
yeah.
interested in learning, I actually love the 100 devs community. I've had a lot of coffee chats with people from there, and I think it's a fantastic group. But that's an aside there.
Okay,
Um,
so an episode would have episode. Oh, well, where do I put like episodes content? Like I should know the episode name and everything by this point. So I would be using like episode title and one liner.
okay, so we've got like a title and a description, which I think, and yeah, like I title is probably, I had kind of like event name, right? But yeah, title is, but yeah, the description is handy. Um, and then I think the date of it is probably helpful for people to show up, maybe.
Well, these
Um,
ones, when the episodes are live, I mean that they go live that day. It's
oh god, I
they're
see what you're
not live
saying.
streams. They are like they're supposed to come out on Wednesdays.
Cool. Yeah,
So
okay, that makes sense. And so I was thinking of like the the event is live, not
yeah.
you know but anyway, it's about the same, right? It's
So
actually
airs. Episode airs.
episode airs,
Airs.
there we go.
There we go.
um and then so yeah, that
And then I feel like I can make these smaller to also work better. And then because these would also need to go to this one and this one, oh, I definitely need to like move stuff around. There we go. This one would also have date because it's a Twitter space.
right,
By date, I do mean date and time. I feel like they can be lumped together.
that sounds good. um okay, so and
Ooh, sorry. I just for remembered one that I'm really bad at and tagging people. We talked about this, and if we want to create something that can tag people, I would I would love that. But I need to tag all the humans
so we
in
can
the
absolutely
Twitter
create
space.
something that does that.
That's going to be a one day thing. I like that we're starting to have like repeat. I almost said repeat customers, repeat guests. Ben's coming on once a month to talk about accessibility, and
Excellent.
Jay will be on at some point. He has a talk tomorrow and just raised money yesterday, which was really cool.
Nice.
I was watching that live stream for a bit. All
Very
right.
cool.
So we are
So yeah, let's see.
all right.
Is there anything else you like to include in those?
And those two specifically, oh yes, graphic. Graphic. Oh, dope. If I can make it, I totally will. I really like watching other people's live streams because even like especially people I know, it's like it's kind of like what is it called again? The buddy system, not buddy system, body
Body
doubling,
doubling, yeah.
body doubling, and it's very calming. And I learn so much, so much.
So true.
Um, but oh, you're not doing a stream; you're doing it while you're watching. Okay, that's fair. You do cool things while you stream too.
Reverse
All
body
right.
doubling here. We're going. It's all
All
good.
right. So we have the episode airs. We need the title, description, and graphic.
Okay.
And Wednesdays is title, description, date and time, and tag all the humans.
So for the Twitter space, in terms of tagging humans, are they people who have been there before? Are they people that you expect to be there? Where are we getting the humans?
The humans are magical creatures that just showed up enough that I started tagging them or they requested to be tagged.
All right.
I have a very ad hoc list of people that I try to like tag across all of them. Like I've had to create I think 3 posts yesterday and 3 posts today just to try to get everybody tagged for tomorrow's Twitter space. And but I mean like the Wednesday Twitter space is technically like uh my social media thing, but the podcast definitely needs to start doing it too because it's where my two lives overlap.
Right. Okay. Well, that's something to think about because we can, think about good ways to do that because there are limits on kind of how many people you can tag and like. But if
Mhm.
we have the idea of tagging people, I think that would be useful, right? And so human tags as opposed to topic tags.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's a great way of saying that.
it's the problem. Like words just start overlapping, and you're like, okay, well now I'm using the same word for like multiple things, and that gets tricky.
I'm gonna pause us really quick
Yes.
and say, Jay, I watched Al's stream last night and I didn't want to get booted, so I was like, yo, can I like talk about other people? So I totally talked about you and just tagged your Twitter space or your Twitter. And you do cool things. So everybody should like basically anybody that's like hanging out with us, you should just go follow them. So if y'all want to just like drop your Twitters, do it because everybody's really does cool things here. So everyone should be friends. It's just where I'm at. All
Right
right.
there with you.
So these are created from uh, requests, tag requests. Yeah. Like people asking to be on it, to be tagged.
Right. So I was looking at Blushing's question there, and
Oh,
I don't know the answer to that. Um,
wait. What?
the link looks like it showed up. Um,
Well,
So
links and
I think
bots.
just anybody who drops links in the chat are not getting deleted by a bot if they don't subscribe, or maybe they do subscribe. I don't know. I'm super new to Twitch, so I'm just trying to like
Oh, me
decipher it as I
too.
understand it.
Ben might know this one, or Jay, or I'm just trying to think. I honestly have reached out to Ben so many times about um Twitch that that's just my go-to person, but I probably other people know too.
I was gonna say Blushing's probably one of the more experienced Twitch streamers here too. So it might be a setting or something. I don't know, or perhaps it just works. But you should totally go follow Blushing. I will totally vouch for everything she does there.
Blushing, we're gonna be friends. It's gonna happen, and I will follow you after this. Maybe. Let's see how I'm getting confused. So I'm not going to. I'm working on focusing today because we
Okay,
have to stop at the end of the hour. All
we
right.
do.
So tag requests, that's how I get tag all the humans is
Okay.
a request. And so just out of to know that I have to create something here, I'm just gonna put um need to create list process to do the things of tagging.
Yeah, that's good. Um, the nice thing is like we can just like these chains can go on forever, and we can kind of like do it. So it's okay to just like stop and be like, that's good enough for now.
Yeah.
And okay, cool. So let's actually go down to the bottom and see what we've got for these two, right?
All right. Go right there. I want to put them closer together. Just so that way I can look at them all. But that's a cool thing with Miro. So a past episode would probably
So would the past episode just be the same as the episode airs, except like after it initially airs?
yes, but that's another question is I create the same type of post and repost it, or do I like scroll to death and like retweet the same post?
So I think there are a few different approaches there. So the thing that I've actually found works fairly well. So I use a tool called Hype Fury that allows me to set like recurrent posts and like what they say are like evergreen tweets. And it'll like periodically retweet those for me. So you could totally use a tool like
Oh.
that to just like, and then you can even say like at the end of the day, go back and get rid of all of my retweets so that if somebody just like comes to my profile and scrolls through, like it won't just be a bunch of crap retweeted. So that way,
Wait, it deletes your retweets?
so it like yeah, it unretweets it, and so like the idea for the retweet is really just get it live again in people's feeds for like a day, and then at the end of the day just go back and undo that and then do it again later, right? And so
What
it's
is that
a
called again?
so it's called Hype Fury. Um
Fury? Pure.
I will.
I'm not the best at spelling. No
No,
one
it's
look at
cool.
my like
I'll drop it in the private chat there.
sweet.
I don't have the
Sweet.
um
Uh
yeah, and so they can do all sorts of like magic with that. And so that's a good way to kind of automate that part out. And so really after you create the initial tweet, you can add it to your list of just like evergreen tweets or whatever. And then so periodically it'll just like put it in. And you can set like schedules for how often you want that stuff to happen. Can also it as you go up through the tiers, you can like also integrate Instagram and LinkedIn. But I know like the LinkedIn version is more than I want to pay for it, so I don't do that part of it. But yeah, something to think about, and especially if you can expense it to work, I recommend that because then you could actually probably set it up for everything. But
I'm just going back here and I'm like, oh yeah, you guys are technically coworkers. And that is fantastic because you both are good humans. They both
That's
work at
awesome.
Microsoft.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I didn't even think of that because I think you guys, A, is just such a giant company, and B, it's like, all right, awesome. Glad you guys connected. I need to concentrate. All right, so past that's an option, or just um, schedule can schedule episode duplicate duplicate of episode airs, right? That's another way I could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one thing to possibly consider here too is just maybe the cadence that you want to do that, right? Like, so how often do you want to share old episodes?
So that's, I think, another thing is, oh shit. This is why it's so complicated for me. So episode airs, I also have to do hype, or I mean, do I need to do hype stuff?
Well, so what do you normally do in terms of hype stuff?
What I normally do, or back in the day when I had a real job and paid somebody to do this stuff, because it doesn't like it clicks for me for teach Jenn Tech. It does not click for me for doing podcasting stuff. Like it's, but like creating audiograms so that way people post them and get excited. Um, and going back a step, I'm like, cool, I can create the audiogram. I just don't know what to cut. I don't know what's going to be an important clip. And then then doing like a different graphic, like a text graphic of them, um, like a quote or something like that. So what do I do for that one? How do I figure out that quote? I can create it. I just don't know what to do, like how to get there. And that is what I mean by hypes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So uh you said you use Descript, right?
I do.
Okay. Um and so do you record the video and audio for your
Mhm.
podcast? Okay. So I'll let you in a little secret that actually Lobau told me about
Oh yeah.
editing and like finding the highlights. He said instead of like listening to it or like looking at the words and like, you know, Descript as the transcript, right? He said just like scroll through and watch the faces. And when faces light up, that's a highlight. Like so you could see it on people's faces like when they get excited about something or you know something is interesting. You can just like kind of do a quick scroll through and say like, oh, this was kind of like a high energy moment and like that's a good
Mhm.
opportunity for a highlight clip. um so that might be helpful, and this part I'm not going to be terribly useful on other than that one tip because I don't do that.
Yeah,
So
and on this one, and I think that's a really good call out, and I want to write it out. I'm trying to think it through a little bit, of when they're shitty topics. I'm like, what will that expression be? In the fact that, like, if we're talking about generational trauma, if we're talking about,
that
someone
that does
being
make it
made
a
fun
little
of,
harder.
like, where I really like that hack though. That's why I'm like,
I think
okay,
it's good, and I think you know instead of looking for maybe the eyes light up, because that would not quite apply, but you can definitely see um, emotional responses, right? And those emotional
yes.
responses are a good place to um, you know cut the clip or whatever.
Okay.
Um, but I would even say like for this part of it, we don't necessarily need to like model all of that out, right? Again, this can go on forever as much as we
It
want.
really
So
could.
um,
I'm going to do, so those are announcements, which this is looking good, but then I'm actually going to just going to copy both of these so it makes my life easier. Paste. Hypes. What would I call hype ones? Like, I like how you put like a very logical, like, this is an archive, this is an interactive. What would a hype be? Would that be an or an announcement too?
Um, so I would say we could call it a couple different things. Potentially like an artifact, right? Like so something that is shareable, like a concrete um, representation of something. Even like a because the thing like, and there are actually different types. So I would even like separate those out, right? So there are audiograms, there are potentially
Yeah.
video clips, there are kind of static images, right? Um, and so yeah, I think probably the classifier I'd put would be like just artifacts or that's the only word I can think of, which maybe not even the best one, but it's the one. So we can
This
always
makes
rename it.
no, I kind of like artifacts because it makes me feel like Indiana Jones,
Right.
and that's
And you could
my
do
goal
an
in life.
entire Indiana Jones themed workflow, to where you name all of the steps like something that makes you think of Indiana Jones, and then the whole workflow is more fun too. Um, so that's the other thing that the other trick that I sometimes use to like make myself do stuff.
Yes, and I like that because it's like the audiograms, the text um, quote, yeah, whatever. And so for those, and this is also the other thing is like how much like we're putting like what I need to put into them, but not like the necessarily how to create them. But I am going to do this really quick so I don't forget. In the script, use visual cues from facial expressions to create, to find a good audiogram. All right, cool.
And so one way to actually kind of streamline this too is once you find, you could start by doing the audiogram because if you can quickly scan to get that, then you can just make a text quote of that audiogram to kind of streamline it, and then
Would you reshare the same information though, or would it? Because they're hype ones. This is literally what I get stuck on. Is oh, I like that idea, but is that good enough?
so if it's done, it's good enough.
Touche.
And you can always modify the process later. But I'm a big believer in
Okay.
just making it as easy as possible from the get go and then optimizing later. So the answer is I have
Okay.
no idea if it'll work. Um, but
Okay.
I would start there and then see how they perform. If you start to see things like go down and go, well, maybe people aren't all that interested. But what I
Yeah.
found is that typically, first of all, like Twitter doesn't show everybody everything anyway. And so
Yeah.
you could share the same thing like 5 times and nobody's going to see it 5 times, most likely. Um,
Fair
they
enough.
might see it once. And so that's kind of the trick there. But also people are attracted like by different things. So they may see both of them. But based on what they're more interested in, they may, actually like engage with the audiogram or they might engage with the text quote. Whereas they, probably wouldn't necessarily engage with both because people are attracted to kind of different cues, right? And so being able to just give people options to like it's tough like with social media and trying to like get people to do things like in that feed. It's such a crapshoot anyway.
Um,
um
I think that's another great question too. And Ben, like you're gonna be stuck in the back of my head about accessibility for the rest of my life. Thanks, but no thanks. Um, I will say it like that. Um, is it open captions that are burned in to the video? Because I'm wondering if Descript does that so that way you can post with. Okay, so I don't know if Descript does open captions, but it's like to be able to read it at the same time.
right. Yeah, and that's something that is good to figure out. And unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. I
That's
don't
okay. We're
do a
gonna
ton
put
of.
does the script um we can go back and fix that later. You can export closed, but do you know if it can do open uh for audiograms? Because I think it has an audiogram export option. Okay, anyway, gotta keep going. Gotta keep going. All right. So audiogram is also going to have the graphic. And then it's gonna have, oh yeah, that would have been fine. It will have the title. It will have um, audio with that. And I don't know if it does open captions, but I can look into it. I think folks may use cap what CapCut. All right, I'll just put it or look into CapCut. And this is the other thing is like right now I'm like, y'all, I don't have a real job yet, so I am buying shit. And that's a big thing because when I first launched the podcast, I had a lot of automation, which did make it easier, but very expensive. Very, very,
It
very
adds
expensive.
up so quickly.
So expensive.
Yeah, and so that's why I say just do what you can and don't worry about doing everything, like especially on a limited budget, because yeah, all of that stuff can be added later, um, and you know, like keep in mind that like these can definitely like first of all, a lot of this is shared information. Like so, if we look at kind of how different, like the titles shared and
Mhm.
everything, and yeah, like the automation triggers are a great way to um, so as things happen, you can just kind of pass that information down the line, right? Um, and so, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like Jay, you there's so many things I want you on the show for. So you first we got to get you on the show and then you can be requested as a repeat person too.
Right.
Switch.
Gotta do it once.
Switch.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's cool. And
Okay.
then
Yeah, and it's showing like it's repeat content, repeat content.
and
Um
like the graphics for episode airs, the audiogram, and then I'm going to say that the text quote has some sort of caption there as well.
yeah, so
Can those
this would
all be like the same graphic or the
yeah.
same template at
So
least?
I could use this.
Because if you have a template, which if you don't, I would highly recommend like spending a little bit of time to develop that template where you can just drop in
Yeah.
what you need. Um,
Luckily those, yes, I do have those.
okay, I figured as much.
It's just
Um,
I don't know why they're so time consuming for me, but they are. This is also a big reason like I've been slacking on like teach Jenn Tech stuff too because I'm just like there's so many steps. Did I forget a step? So I'll also be doing this for that too. This mural board is going to go on forever.
and that's kind of the great part about it is like just starting it, you can always add to it, right? And you
Yeah.
can keep adding levels of detail. And as you do that, you start to see like, oh, well, this is shared here and there. Because then you can kind of start like rearranging things, and then you say like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, actually, I only need to like do this one thing, and then that unlocks the data that I need for like these next four things, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe I can automate some of those or all of them, right? Um, and so you'll be able to kind of do things in different orders as you realize that it's we typically think of things linearly, but when designing workflows, you'll start to see like where there's a lot of repeat work in various steps, right? And so if you can extract that repeat work out into like a preliminary step and then just share it between the rest of the tasks, all those other tasks get smaller and therefore
Mhm.
easier to manage. Um, and that's why I think this is just such a valuable exercise in terms of like figuring out like what pieces go where. Um, and so, we can kind of see that like all of this data for this is pretty much something we can capture, right? In terms of, um, so like, most of it's shared. And I think the only things that like necessarily require new work um, are, putting the information into the graphic for each one, right? And so like those will be slightly different.
Yeah,
Right.
but almost well, let me delete this one because I think the graphic I'm gonna put these ones up here. I think the graphic for, like, episode airs is gonna be the same graphic for, like, the audiogram.
Okay.
So I could put it there, put this there. But it's not the same graphic as the text quote because I'm not gonna be able to fit it all on there if it is, you know?
Right.
So, we got graphic, we got ti ooh, title is the same for everybody. Eh, okay, and I will color code these later so they're easier to read. And then description would only go into episode airs because that's going to be longer. I can get rid of these. And all of this stuff, it's all on its by itself. So, oh,
Okay. So now I think we can actually step out of the workflow for a minute. And if you remember last time, we were talking about like identifying the nouns that we care about, right?
yeah.
Um, and so I think the most important noun here is episode, right?
Hmm.
And so, like, that episode then contains the title, the description, the date and time of airing. Let's see. And then, so we have two graphics. So there's the like announcement graphic and the uh, text quote graphic.
Yeah. So,
And the audiogram.
and I think this is something that um I definitely would want to do more on a another episode because it's like at least in my head where I think this would be really helpful is we're taking it and so we're looking at the data model and the workflow, we're creating the nouns. But just like when I'm like, hey, what do we want to make? It's going to be cool. I don't know what to make in like a program. Like, do I want to make a web app? Do I like, I don't know where to start for what the naming convention should be and all the things I should name and actually translating that to a program. So I'm just going to, Leo or anybody else that one day when Leo and I are done with this, want to create something that can like show people this or talk me through it, I'll figure it out too. But being able to like, go from step A to Z, even though they're two different projects.
So, I mean, the cool thing about this, so actually, and I will say the for the nouns, really, episode was the noun. All of that other stuff is kind of under episode. So, like, and when I say nouns, a lot of times this is something that will be a table in a database. Um, or that's kind of the easiest way to think about it, right? And then so all of those will be columns within that database, um, potentially. And so when you start looking at these and you say, okay, well, if I have a database that has this information, then I can generate all of the artifacts that I need from that information, right? And so, kind of just starting out by then, like, okay, when I create an episode, these are the things I need to fill out. And then it's probably just a matter of like copying and pasting into tweets for now. But then later you can be like, oh, I can actually just automate, this step of the process to post these tweets. Um, and ideally, what would happen is you'd be able to record the information or, record the episode, put in this information, and then it would automatically do the rest of it because these are really the most important pieces of the workflow, right? The rest of it's just kind of like breaking it up into various pieces and putting it out to different destinations. And that's really like what an app is about, right? Or a program. Except typically when we think of that, we think of like a web app. It's displaying all this information like somewhere in our own web app.
Hmm.
Whereas this workflow, we're displaying bits and pieces of information on Twitter or on Instagram or on LinkedIn or wherever. And so that's why it's such a good idea to kind of get this handle on like what are the most important pieces of things I've got, because once I get that data, I can do all sorts of things with it, and I could even like transform it into various uh different representations of that data. But the data is what is actually needed, because then you start thinking, okay, well, where do I get that data? Can I get any of that data automatically? Um, and so you create the database table, and maybe you start off by just putting it in manually, but then you realize, oh, actually, when I post this episode, or when StreamYard saves this episode or whatever, right? I can save that to a specific location and then pre-populate all this information, or at least like some section of it, right? And so you can start getting a little bit of this information, like pieces at a time, automatically.
Right.
Um, and so all of that then becomes a bigger app, because you've broken it down into like small pieces and say, okay, I
Hmm.
need this, this, and this. Where do I get those? And it's
Hmm.
easiest to just start off manually. Like just give yourself a place to start off manually. And so like um Airtable or Notion, great
I love
database.
Notion.
I do too, and I'm still learning it. But like I'm a Cub Scout leader for my son's Cub Scout den this year. And so one of the first things I did is I created a Notion dashboard to like keep track of like what I need to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'm that guy. Yeah, um, but yeah, like just being able to have like a representation of this data and just being able to see like, oh, I need this, and I can fill all this in, and then like, oh, for this next step, I just have to copy and paste all of this. That makes it
Right.
so much easier. Um, and like, yeah, just going through the process, I think, is so helpful in seeing that, because again, then you start being able to reorganize, you start being able to optimize various workflows,
Hmm.
and you start to see like where your pain points are, and like, oh, well, like 90% of this is okay, but this one piece is a real pain in the ass. Like, okay, well, how can I break that down further? How can I fix that? Do I need that piece? Maybe I
Hmm.
don't. Maybe I can just scrap it and say it's not worth the effort, right?
Hmm.
For what we're getting. Um, and that's really where the good optimizations can come in.
And I'm totally digging this, and it was really, really helpful. Like, just being able to go, okay, Jen, stop being so ADHD and like refocus. Uh, in the fact that this is a big problem that I have when trying to get this stuff done without having like a list written out, because I'm like, oh, shiny, that's over there. And I don't mean that as like I hate the term when people are like, oh, Dory. And I'm like, no, it's just naturally, I'm like, oh, but this needs to get done too. And, it
There's
just
a million
endless.
things that need to be done. And then I
Yes.
think about this, like, you can branch off for a while. You can follow the rabbit hole, right? And go like, oh, well, this actually leads here, here, and here. But then you can go, oh, actually, I just need to come back to here. I don't need to focus on that right now. But
Mhm.
when I do need to focus it, I've already got the connection started, so I
Mhm.
can come back in and then like work on that. So
Exactly.
I do find it really helpful to kind of, because it just builds on itself, right? And so as you start modeling it out, you kind of get this more complex thing over time that allows you to more easily come back to where you were before. And so you have that diagram, and then you have the database, and like, so once you have that, like, and you start putting things in, it all starts coming together, because that part becomes easier, and then you're like, oh, well, now I have extra time that I can spend on this part of it. And do I want to automate this? Yes, no, I don't know. And
I'm
so
not gonna lie. This is I'm gonna be sending you the link to like schedule your next episode. You
absolutely.
know, because I think something that and Lebao is like the so many quotes from Lebao.
Right.
Um, uh, something that he said that really stuck with me is like when people and I'm totally paraphrasing this, of like when people are like, "Hey, you're here, but go over to that island," and like we can all logically be like, "Okay, cool, I need to get to that island," but how do we go from A to B? Like, okay, you're telling me how, but it's just I don't you're saying words, but I don't get it. And I think that is something that I'm like, okay, cool. Like you've shown me how to do this. It makes enough sense that I feel like I can work through my diagrams for everything. But then the database stuff, I'm like, I get it, but I don't get it.
So it sounds like next time we need to be working on a database.
Yes, yes. And Leo is good at this stuff. Definitely, I agree. And homie, Leo definitely needs to come back. This is his. I'm surprised. I'm kind of glad, but I'm kind of surprised that nobody showed up last week for our episode because it was not as organized. It was just like a bunch of, but it was a lot of theory that's set up for today, which I'm very, very grateful for.
Yeah, and theory is good, and but honestly, like, just going through the process, I'm always torn of like, do I do theory first or practice first? Because it doesn't really matter, because like
Hmm.
they kind of like feed into each other.
Right.
And so we can go through like the process of just doing it, and then talk about the theory and why all of it works. You don't actually need the theory, but it does get you to some places like earlier sometimes.
Hmm.
And that's something I always like go back and forth on, because like I'm really like interested in the theory, because it's like, oh yeah, this is why all of this works, because I've been doing this for a long time. But in reality, you don't actually need to know a lot of
Yeah.
it. Like
Yeah.
it's helpful, kind of. Maybe it's interesting. I don't know, but
I find it
uh,
interesting. Interesting. I can't talk. Interesting. There we go. And once again, Leo, thank you for joining today. I know you and I
absolutely.
both have meetings at the top of the hour, so I'm going to end the broadcast. And thank you all for joining. Please also tweet us like if you want to see shows on like specific people, tag them and tag me to have them on Teach Jenn Tech. Tag Leo too, so we can convince them. I don't want to say I will bully them onto the show. That's mean, Jen. But not peer
We'll
pressure.
aggressively convince them, because it'll be so much fun and
Yes.
beneficial for all involved.
Yes. Yeah. What he said. What he said. All right. Thank you all. Bye.